Hey guys, welcome to the channel. This is NBATierz. Today I have a very different special video for us. Today we are going to be starting a new series, all original content here. This is going to be called NBADuelz, right? So we're still doing a tier list, but it's just kind of different format. I'll take you through that here. So here are the top 50 peaks of the 2010s and 2020s era. This is a tier list that I created myself. I will put the link in the description if you kind of want to mess around with this yourself. And the tiers are different than how I'm going to end up doing it here. I think the default tiers I set were just top 10, top 20, top 30, top 40, top 50. We're doing it different with the Duels series with this tier list. Basically how this is going to work is we got our names over here on this wheel, right? We're going to see what name we get, and they're going to start us off as the king of the hill, and then we're going to take the next person and match them up against them and then see how high they climb. And as we kind of go through it here, we'll get more tiers and get more rungs on the ladder per se. So I'll just kind of get us started off here, show you what I mean by this. So first name we get is Paul Pierce. Okay. Now, let's see who we will duel him with. Luka. Okay. So, Luka Doncic. If I can find him, yep. I don't need to explain that Luka's peaked higher than Paul Pierce, so we'll just go ahead and throw him in this tier above. Now, also, to clarify kind of what I meant by these peaks, like I said, these are 50 players. There's 10 at each of the 5 positions. So the 10 best peaks either in the 2010s or 2020s decade, so far at least. And there's players here who didn't peak like a Paul Pierce in the 2010s or 2020s, but still had a top 10 peak at their position within that time frame, right? So like him, Kobe, other players, they weren't at their best in the 2010s or even the 2020s if it's a current player who's still playing, but they still had a top 10 peak within that decade, right? So this is just Luka versus Paul Pierce, not even at his best, which still Paul Pierce would probably lose that duel, right? And so now the next name we grab, we're just going to see how high they can climb, right? We're going to see how they do in the duel. We got Middle Tom, or Chris Middleton, rather. So now we have Chris Middleton versus Paul Pierce. 2010, 2011, 2012, whatever Paul Pierce. And also, we're really just using like the best version of that player's peak within this time frame. Like we're not doing, sustained excellence or, career accomplishments. Really, it's really just the single best version, single best season, single best year of that player. Probably like still 2010, 2011 Paul Pierce versus what I would say is 2021 Middleton, right? It's probably when he showed us his best basketball. The Bucks won the championship that year. He and Giannis were going crazy. There were games I think Giannis missed in the conference finals against the Hawks where Chris Middleton just took over. And even in games where Giannis played throughout that playoffs, Chris Middleton had games where, he was the lead guy. He was closing them out. He was being crazy in the fourth quarters. He got the, meme MJ comparisons. Do I think that 2021 Chris Middleton is better than the peak of Paul Pierce in the 2010s? I think that Paul Pierce may still have been a better defender. Naturally, Paul Pierce was a pretty good passer, but I don't think by then, and even just in general on the Celtics, I don't think he was required to do too much playmaking with Rondo. This is interesting. I think these are relative players. Obviously, he's not climbing up to Luka. So Luka's going to be the king of the hill for now. Give me... I think I'm going to take Chris Middleton over Paul Pierce right now. And then we're not going to name these tiers until the end. We'll just kind of number them. But yeah, I think Middleton's probably better than early 2010s Paul Pierce at his best. So let's grab our next name. Joel Embiid. Okay, let's see how high Joel can climb. We all can agree that peak Joel, which is probably just current Joel, healthy obviously, better than Paul Pierce, better than Chris Middleton. This is where we get into the debate. I already did a list, tier list ranking my top 100 current NBA players. In that list, I did have Joel Embiid higher. It's not going to be any different here. I think that offensively, he's an amazing player. Luka is a better offensive player. But Joel Embiid is also one of the best, 15, maybe 10, 12 defenders in the league. And Luka's a liability on that end. Maybe if he could break even or be slightly above average defensively, that would be enough to maybe put him over Embiid with just how dominant offensively he is. But even then, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. So Embiid's going to be the new top dog right now until further notice. Let's grab our next name. Jason Tatum. All right. Jason Tatum. Do I think that peak Jason Tatum's better than 2010's Paul Pierce? I do. I think he's better than Chris Middleton. And we really don't have to, have the talk with Luke or anything. So that'll probably be as high as Tatum climbs. And then a lot of these, I'm just going to, if it's not much conversation to be had with some of these duels, we won't go as in depth. When the matchups start to get a little bit more interesting, we'll kind of break it down a little bit further. But I think it's pretty obvious this is about where Tatum ranks so far out of these 5 players, peak for peak, within the time frame given. We have peak Chris Paul. Okay, so not peak Chris Paul. That was probably like 08, but peak Chris Paul in the 2010s, either on the Clippers. Some might have the hot take rather, and say that he probably played his best on the Rockets. I don't know about that. He's better than Paul Pierce. He's better than Chris Middleton, in my opinion. And we can have a conversation here. As an offensive maestro on the Clippers, Chris Paul was still that guy. Still giving you around like 20 points per game, I think, even at that time. Was a good defender at the guard position. Obviously, he can't match Tatum's like scoring output, but I think some of Tatum's flaws Chris Paul doesn't have, right? Shot IQ, game management, some more mental and intangible things may put Chris Paul higher for me. Do I believe that though? Do I like fully believe it? I think I do. And then obviously I don't want to really do the old Luka thing or Embiid. This will be the highest Chris Paul climbs. Is this some hot take? I don't know. Let me know what you think about that. You think Tatum has peaked higher than like a Clippers Chris Paul? I don't. Probably not. Maybe. I think I'm open to the conversation. If someone had Tatum higher, I probably wouldn't be offended. Yeah, but I think this is fine. Devin Booker. Peak Devin Booker so far in his career versus 2010's Paul Pierce. That's Devin Booker. He beats Middleton. And then he's going to stop short, right, of Jason Tatum. I think we all can agree. Again, not really much to discuss here, but we'll definitely, I'm sure we'll get some very interesting duels and matchups. But for now, a lot of this is pretty self-explanatory. Chris Paul and Tatum's probably the biggest debatable one. Maybe Middleton and Paul Pierce, depending on who you ask, but we'll see. We have Karl Anthony Towns. Okay, so for Cat, This is going to be interesting. Obviously, he's not like touching Booker, right? So at best, he can climb up 2 spots here. Do I think that Cat is better than 2010's Paul Pierce? I think he should be. But then when we get to playoff translation, I think this is the issue, right? Because Paul Pierce was performing in the playoffs still, even at that stage of his career. Obviously, we know Chris Middleton did in 2021. Because of playoff translation, I'm probably gonna put Cat at the bottom. This year, 2024, was his best performance in the playoffs of his career, which isn't saying much because prior to that, he was a criminal in the playoffs. But and he had some good moments for sure in 2024 this year, but he kind of faded in the Mavs series. He had a couple mad games in the Nuggets series as well. He came out swinging in the playoffs when they played Phoenix, and after that, he kind of reeled it back in. Had some good games, but I don't know. I don't know if I'm too moved by Cat, as underrated as I think he can get at times. So we'll grab our next name. I think this looks good for now. This is Wardell Stephen Curry, a second. Yeah, and I went ahead and just reused some of these pictures from my Finals MVP video. But yeah, we have Steph. We can kind of just climb him up here, and I think Luka's where we're gonna start to have the conversation. I think peak Steph is 2021, me personally. Some people think that it's 2016, which is fine. I think in 2016, it was just different, right? That was like his and obviously he's already MVP at that point, but that was like his all-time great breakout season where he just became kind of a different player. And I don't think the league was ready yet in terms of just go look, rewatch those games or even just some highlights. How they defended 2016 Steph versus how he gets defended nowadays. If he got defended like that today, oh, he's going crazy, right? They weren't like full on tripling this guy at half court. They weren't, full court pressing every game or every possession. It feels like it was just different. I don't think the league was ready. So I think the defensive coverages he faced later in his career, specifically 2021, and that's not the year they won the chip. It's actually the year the Warriors missed the playoffs. But he averaged 32 points on a team with Kelly Oubre, Wiggins, Draymond, just horrible spacing, and the league had nothing for him. And I do think that version of Steph is better than peak, which is basically just current Luka. He's not a liability on the defensive end. Actually, here I'm not gonna do that yet. He's not a liability on the defensive end, while also, I think, just being a better offensive player, in my opinion. But I don't know how people feel about that. And then we'll just go ahead and do Steph Curry peak for peak versus Joel Embiid. This is interesting. In my current players ranking video, I put Embiid ahead of Steph. But I'm not sure this is peak Steph in 2024 right now that we're dealing with. If I'm to compare him versus 21 Steph, that's tough. That's tough. Do I think Embiid has peaked higher than Steph at his very, very best? I do not. But I'm open to the conversation. But I think I'm going to put Steph higher for sure. I think just the offensive output he had, obviously he can't match Embiid defensively, but he's not a liability on that end. Him as a playmaker and passer, which is was one of Embiid's weaknesses, something he definitely got better at. But I just think as an offensive hub, the value Steph brings at his very, very best in terms of spacing out your defense, just being a matchup problem. This is close, but I'd probably lean Steph, so LeBron James. Okay, so now we have LeBron. So for this template, I used 2018 LeBron. Some people think LeBron was at his peak in Miami. I'm fine with that opinion. I think that they're just different players. 2018 LeBron just had a lot more offensively for me in my opinion, than he did in Miami. So I grabbed 2018 LeBron, and we're just going to shoot him all the way to the top, right? And to be honest, it's kind of unfortunate we got him this early because he probably won't leave from that spot. But we'll see. Not much to discuss there. We'll see. Just great offensive player, was shooting the ball well, playmaking at an extreme level. Not his best defensive season in 18 because of the offensive load he had, but he still could, defend. He's still a plus on that end. Just crazy playoff translation. We know about 2018 LeBron. Now we have peak DeMar DeRozan, which is, of course, on the Raptors. DeMar DeRozan on the Raptors. Or maybe you feel like he peaked in San Antonio or something. I don't know. But the best I've seen of DeMar DeRozan versus Karl Anthony Towns. The best I've seen of DeMar versus Paul. Yeah, he's going to climb a little bit here. I think I want to start to have the conversation here. Middleton's a better three-point shooter. Obviously, DeMar has him in the mid-range, which Middleton's still very cash at. I think DeMar, his rim pressure, just getting downhill, attacking in transition, he just played at obviously a quicker pace than Chris Middleton, who was a little bit more methodical, even though, of course, DeMar was too. But just as an athlete, I'd favor DeMar. Defensively, it's Middleton. And then we get to playoff translation. And we know DeMar DeRozan's just notorious for those just those crazy playoff drops, which is what the same reason I had Cat beneath Paul Pierce. But the difference is I do think DeMar's regular season output as a lead scoring option in comparison to like Cat and Paul Pierce, while being on a very competitive playoff team, contenders even, to be honest, if he plays right in playoffs, the Raptors have motion in the East. I think the load he carried is gonna probably leave him above Pierce for me. But I think Middleton just does a couple of different things better while also translating to the playoffs better. So we'll leave DeMar here. That may be a bit low. I could entertain this, right? But I'm going to probably end up leaving it. I could entertain it. Our next name is Blake Griffin. I actually think Blake at his best is on the Pistons. Obviously, he's got the iconic, clips on the Clippers and, just highlight reel plays, dunking on people. This Blake Griffin on the Pistons, though, was different. He was able to stretch it out to the three-point line, and not just, occasionally, no, he was shooting, off the top of my head, if I remember correctly, he was maybe shooting 4 or 5 threes a game at maybe 37%. I'm just freestyling. I'm pretty sure that was in the neighborhood of his numbers. Obviously, a very good playmaker, especially at his position. Maybe the best passing power forward in the game at that point in time. Good scorer, could crash the glass. And then in Detroit, he was much better defensively, I think, than he was in LA. He's going to climb a decent bit here. He's going to climb. I'd put him, and it sucks because I think he got injured this year, and they played the Bucks in the playoffs, I'm pretty sure, and they lost in 5 or something like that. And I don't think he was crazy in the playoffs because he was playing through injury or he got hurt or something like that, if I remember. I think he's better than Chris Middleton, the best I've seen of Blake Griffin. I think he was crazy that year in Detroit. Shout out to the Detroit Blake, man. Don't sleep. But I probably wouldn't put him versus Booker or anything, or anyone up here, obviously. So that'll be as high as he climbs, and we'll grab our next name. Kyle Lowry. This is interesting. This is a player who at his best was a very good offensive initiator, good passer, good shooter, was drawing contact with fouls, playing very good defense. Just a very well-rounded, underrated player at the height of his powers. Playoff translation into 2019 was very shaky. So maybe I'll just think of 2019 Kyle Lowry when he won with Kawhi. Would I take him over Cat. I don't know. I don't know. I really don't. Because again, we mentioned, the Cat playoff dropping, but Kyle never was just having some crazy output in the postseason his whole career as well. Obviously, he ended up winning a championship, so maybe that winning bias could bleed into this. But, I think consistently just throughout a season, Cat's going to reach higher highs, probably for me. I think I'm going to take the best I've seen of Cat as a player over Pete Kyle Lowry. I don't think that's too hard to take. But he probably won't be the last on this list, so he'll be fine. Now we have Victor Wembanyama. I do believe he already has had a top 10 peak at the center position of the last, 15 seasons, 2010s and 2024. The best of Victor Wembanyama, just this one season, he's better than Pete Kyle Lowry. He's better than Cat now as a player already. He's better than Paul Pierce. He's better than DeMar DeRozan. He's better than Chris Middleton. He's better than Blake Griffin. This guy's already one of the best defenders in the league. Some would think the best. Can't go lower than maybe 4, maybe 3. Probably can't go lower. He improved his shot throughout the season, started to knock that down, especially off the dribble somehow. Dude's like 9 feet tall. Good rebounder, good passer. Really just got to clean up the turnovers, right? And get a little bit more efficient. But, I mean, look at the roster he's with as well in terms of spacing, in terms of, creators around him. As soon as he gets a point guard, it's over. He's going to have some crazy year 2, year 3 jump. I don't think he's better than Devin Booker. I think these players up here just have a certain level of offensive polish that Wemby doesn't have yet. But none of these players down here have the offensive packages to make up for Wemby still being a good offensive player and just clearing everyone here defensively, damn near combined. So I'm going to put him ahead of Blake Griffin. And that's going to be as high as Wemby climbs for now. And we'll go and grab our next name. Waiting for some, very thought-provoking comparisons here. Let's see if we get it with Jimmy Butler. Okay. Obviously, at his best, Jimmy's better than Kyle Lowry, Cat, 2010s ball. We can kind of just move on with this. I do think Jimmy at his best is a better player than current Victor. Obviously, he's better offensively, not near the defender, but still a great wing defender. Was carrying the Heat to the finals, more specifically in 2020 than or more specifically in 2023, than 2020. But nonetheless, this is where we can actually, I think peak Jimmy's higher than Devin Booker. I think he's higher because I think his defense is enough to cover that small offensive gap. I do think Jimmy is a better playmaker and passer than Devin Booker. Playing out of double teams, stuff like that. Obviously, Booker's the better scorer, better shooter. Jimmy finishes at the basket better, draws more fouls, gets himself to the free throw line. Playoff translation, probably higher, even though Booker did have that crazy 2023 playoffs. And then I want to start to have the conversation here. The best I've seen of Jimmy Butler, the best I've seen of Jason Tatum. I'm going to lean towards... this is tough. This is tough because until this season, maybe, I think most people always had these two players pretty relative to each other. And it's literally, by now, I've already said my issues with Tatum. It's between the head for me, between the ears. Something about just how he approaches the game with his IQ that I think Jimmy kind of separates himself. And I'm not talking about Mamba mentality or anything like that. No, it's just shot IQ, picking their spots, just the decision making. I think Jimmy separates himself just a little bit there, even if Tatum has a little bit more talent, or you would think. Jimmy's better defensively. I'm going to leave Jimmy ahead, and then we're going to do him versus Chris Paul. This is interesting for me. Peak Jimmy versus like a Clippers CP3. I think I'm going to lean Jimmy again, to be honest with you. And then I really don't think we have to, go to Luka. Like, we already got, look at these 4 players we already got up here. Not too many people are going to climb. I don't think. Yeah, we'll put Jimmy ahead of CP3 in that duel. I think that looks good for now. And we'll grab our next name. Melo. And of course, that is the Melo, Carmelo Anthony. Okay. This is Knicks and Melo, obviously, since we're doing like 2010s. He's better than Kyle Lowry. He's better than Karl Anthony Towns. He's better than that version of Paul Pierce. But hey, if we're going like real actual peaks, hey man. But yeah, he's better than him. He's better than DeMar DeRozan. He's better than Chris Middleton. Okay. Is he better than Blake Griffin? No. No, I don't think so. I don't think so. I think Melo's a better scorer, just in isolation. Better shooter. Sure. Blake's a better playmaker, better passer, better rebounder, better defender. Give me Blake. Give me Blake. And if you've got an issue with that, I don't think you remember Pistons Blake Griffin. I'm fine with that. All right. Oh, there we go. Zach LaVine. I don't. Okay. I'm not too high on Zach LaVine. I'm gonna leave him at the bottom. I don't think he climbs not one spot. To be honest with you. I wouldn't take him over Pete Kyle Lowry. He's a better scorer. That's about it. Bad defender, bad playmaker in my opinion. Yeah, no, I'm not taking him over anyone here. And if you think he should be like above Cat or something, because again, the playoff dropping, this guy has not played a playoff game. So we do not know if he would drop or rise. And as of now, we don't even know if he still plays basketball. So, unfortunate. Zach LaVine's going to be at the bottom. We'll grab our next name. Ooh, this will be fun. Up next, we have James Harden, which is, of course, on the Rockets. A lot of these we really don't have to entertain, right? He's going to climb, he's going to climb, he's going to climb. He's going to climb, he's going to climb, he's going to climb. He's going to climb. This is where I want to start to have the conversation. James Harden versus Luka Doncic, obviously very comparable play styles. We hear the comparisons all the time. Very similar players in terms of their heliocentric ran offenses, little to no off-ball game, really high elite level playmakers and passers, and not the best of defenders. Defensively, I do think Harden is better, and I really could say that comfortably. I really don't think that's... Now, offensively, Harden should maybe even still be better because he's a better shooter. He's better at, drawing contact, getting to the free throw line. Luka's probably a better finisher. The separator here for most people would probably be playoff translation. Luka is obviously a renowned playoff performer. We think the opposite of James Harden. I do think, generally speaking, his playoff quote-unquote choke jobs kind of get over overstated because for the most part, he was translating into the postseason in his peak and in his like prime years. The issue was always just like the big games. It felt like, a game 6 or a game 7. He wasn't going to be there. And in that scenario, I think most people would like, you put your life on the line, you're probably going to bet on Luka in the big game versus Harden. And that's really the main separator here. Maybe it's just big games throughout their careers, but more specifically, obviously, we're just talking about in their peak. I think Luka's shown to meet the moment a little bit better. But, I mean, those are two just variants of the same archetype. Let me know if you think, like, Jimmy Butler should be higher than Harden or something like that. I don't think so. Okay. Now, we have Paul George. I actually ended up using OKC Paul George. I don't think that surprises anyone. This was him at his best. He was in the MVP talks that season. He averaged like 28 a game. Was knocking down 3. I think he led the league in I think he was 3rd in Defensive Player of the Year as well, right? Just elite defense. Great season from Paul George. I'm gonna climb him. I'm gonna just kind of, you know what I mean? Like, okay. We can have this conversation right here, and the conversation would end with Paul George being better. Okay, let's have this talk. So, the best we've seen so far of Jason Tatum versus Paul George. I do think that Tatum's a better playmaker and passer, just never really been one of PG's strengths. Paul George is a better shooter. Getting to the rim and finishing. See, this version of PG, unlike current PG, actually did get to the rim, a little bit more consistently, went downhill, attacked the basket. But I do still think, maybe Tatum's a better finisher. Paul George is a better defender for sure. And it's hard because with Paul George, 2019, that MVP talk, Paul George, he got injured in the playoffs. Like he had like some type of shoulder injury when they lost to the Blazers in like 5 games, right? Remember that? So it's hard to like really gauge in terms of playoff translation, but this guy kind of catches some flack for his playoff woes. So I don't think that's anything that should hold PG back in this year's specific matchup. He's going to go higher than Tatum maybe, I think. Then from there we get Paul George versus Chris Paul. Give me Paul. Give me Paul George. I don't think he's better than Jimmy. We can have this talking conversation. Like, he's a better shooter than Jimmy. He's probably still I'd probably take this Paul George defensively as well. But I think separate here is playmaker and passing, while Jimmy still being a very good scorer. Like, obviously, Chris Paul is a better playmaker, passer than Paul George, but he's not really close defensively like Jimmy is, while also not being to have the like scoring output that these two players have. So it's all decently close between these three. But I think I'm going to favor Paul George and Jimmy Butler over CP3 and Jimmy over PG. I can't say it with 1,000% confidence is what I'll say. But also I do think these are different roles between these two, right? Because Jimmy was asked to be a number 1 scoring option and still a primary decision maker on the ball, whereas PG had Russ, who was there to kind of mask that. It's not that his playmaking or passing was a flaw as much as just wasn't a strength. Like, he wasn't a bad passer. He just didn't really need to do too much of that. He just, had Russ setting him up, getting him in the spots, and he's just, hitting his shots, doing what he does offensively, which is fine. But I think offensive load, Jimmy had more of that, and while being, still an elite defender. So we'll go with Jimmy for now. Nice little spot for Paul George. Let's grab our next name. The best of Kevin Durant. So this is obviously Warriors KD, 17, 18, whatever. 19, whatever. Pick your season. Obviously, we know he can just kind of climb here. He can climb here. He's better than peak Jimmy Butler. He's better than peak James Harden. Oh, this is tough. This is tough. Oh, he's better than peak Luka. Okay. Let's have this talk. Because shooter, KD, finisher, drawing contact, getting to the line, Joel Embiid. Defensively, Joel Embiid. This is annoying. This is annoying. KD's better. Maybe. Not comfortably. Not comfortably. I think a lot of people make this choice quicker just because of KD being a champion and Embiid having this stigma of like playoff choking, but like, nah. This is close for me. We can have this conversation as well. I think most people would do this. I'm not most people. But we can entertain this conversation. Obviously, these are two very relative players. I do think it's close. Steph's a better shooter. KD's, better finishing, getting to the rim. I think the separator here for me is just shot creation. Shot creation, playmaking, passing, just some of those things offensively. Steph just being dynamic in the pick and roll, being able to find guys. And again, KD, not a bad passer. Very good passer. Actually, I'd say he was a good passer. But couldn't really have the all-around offensive package for me that Steph had. KD was better defensively, but again, Steph's no negative there. I'm not sure if that's enough to kind of offset Steph just at their best being an offensive player for me. If Steph was a liability, I'd put KD higher. But I think Steph at his best can break even or be a slight plus defensively. And that's enough for me to put him higher in terms of offensive value. So, looks like we got those three. This is Donovan Mitchell. Very good player. He's better. Yeah. He's better. He's better. This is a conversation right here. Me personally, when these are currently the best two shooting guards in the league, I think most of us can agree, unless you have like Jaylen Brown or N in there, which no, they aren't better than either of these players. Every year it feels like I go back and forth on who I think is better between these two, because they almost never perform like the same. So if Donovan Mitchell has a good postseason, Devin Booker probably sucks that postseason, and vice versa. It's weird, but I'm gonna lean on the side of D-Book at the moment. Okay, this will be fun. Russell Westbrook. MVP Russell Westbrook, of course. We can just kind of go up the ladder here. He's better than Chris Paul. Now, okay, so obviously Russell Westbrook, following the departure of Kevin Durant to Golden State, wins the MVP in 2017, goes crazy, averages like a 32, 31, however many point triple-double, record-breaking, just historical season. The next season, Paul George joins him, and then the year after that, PG himself is found in those MVP talks. The separator here for me is just going to be, and again, it's just the full offensive package in terms of not only being a threat as a scorer, but as a playmaker and a passer, is why I'm going to hold Russ, in a higher regard. I do think, and again, this exact Paul George had the benefit of a Russell Westbrook in terms of just, getting everyone involved on their team, getting Paul George himself involved. I don't know if given a similar role to this Russell Westbrook, if Paul George would flourish, if he's asked to not only create his own offense, but create offense at a high level for the others around him, especially with Like, who did Russ have? What was he out there with? Roberson and Steven Adams and whoever? Like, come on, what are we doing? Yeah, I'm gonna put Russ higher. Actually, um, has Jimmy Butler peaked higher than Russell Westbrook? No, no, I don't think so. And the reason I say that is just load in terms of we know Jimmy for the most part, right, is known as like a playoff riser, but he's the rise is so just glaring because of what he outputs in the regular season, which is not comparable to Russell Westbrook in my opinion, and just how he kind of coasts through the regular season. Still plays at an all-star level, right? Still plays very good, but I don't think he can just go crazy for an entire regular season like a Russell Westbrook, and then also go and put those numbers up in the postseason. I think Jimmy's slick. He preserves himself. So nah, we're gonna put Russ higher, and then like we could have this conversation if we wanted to, but I think most of us have Harden as a better player than Russ peak for peak. So we'll grab our next name. This is Dwayne Wade. Still had a top 10 shooting guard peak of the last 15 years. I think most of us would agree. Um, in 2011, he was playing out of his mind. LeBron didn't show up to that finals. He was the best player on that Heat team. Obviously, in 12 and 13, he helped the Heat win some championships, but 2011, Wade, 2010, whatever, still had the goods, whatever you think his peak season was of the 2010s. We're just going to climb here. We're going to climb. This tier of players right here is where it gets interesting. Let's start the conversation here. Because in terms of these two shooting guards, Devin Booker and Donovan Mitchell, I think Wade just did certain things better. Like as a passer, in terms of getting to the rim, drawing contact, and then obviously what he brings to the table defensively versus Devin Booker and Donovan Mitchell. Not really much of a discussion there, right? So I think I'm comfortable putting him over those two. Here's the thing with the Tatum. Do I think, and again, I've noted the issues that I've had with Jason Tatum. Do I think that D Wade has enough output to really match up to a guy who can really just average 30, be a great versatile defensive wing, is going to hit the glass, solid passer. Intangibles, I lean Wade, but like in this case, I'm not sure if we're talking about '06 Wade, which we're not, obviously we're not really hesitating here. I might give it to Tatum for now. I might give it to Tatum. I think Tatum's a better shooter. I think Wade may be like a better on-ball defender on guards, and obviously we know about Wade as a rim protector at his position in terms of just all-time list, really. But still, Tatum is a very versatile defender, probably more so than Wade. Yeah, I think he can reach higher highs than this version of D Wade. D Wade's finals performance in like all those years was better than Tatum in 24, but that's one series. Let's not let that cloud our judgment. Now we have MVP Derrick Rose. Okay. Not as high on Derrick Rose as a lot of people are, right? He's just a very beloved person, fan favorite NBA player, like won MVP at 22. This man was crazy. Oh yeah, I'm finna piss some D Rose fans off. Derrick Rose is not better than Donovan Mitchell or Devin Booker for me. Yeah, no, I don't think I could get nastier. Like I promise you, I could get so nasty. Like I really do. Promise you, I could get nasty, but I'm not gonna push it. I'm not gonna push it. But tell me if someone tells you Wemby's better than Derek. Like, would you just be so offended? Is it just because he's a rookie? Like, do we understand this is one of the best defenders of the last 15 years already, while being a plus offensive player? But I do think offensive load, it's just different roles, obviously, with these two. Um, I'm gonna leave D Rose higher, put some respect on his name, but let's do Chris Bosh. Okay, Chris Bosh over Zach LaVine, of course. Chris Bosh over Kyle Lowry, of course. Chris Bosh over Cat, yes. Chris Bosh or Paul Pierce. Chris Bosh or and obviously we're talking about Heat Bosh here. Or Paul Pierce. Jeez. I don't like this. I don't like this. Let's have a talk. Obviously as an offensive player, Pierce is better. Chris Bosh is one of the best defenders in the league at that time, especially at his position, allowing the Heat to go, quote unquote, small ball, just very versatile defender. But I don't know if I want to go ahead of Paul Pierce. He was a third option. Still a top 10 power forward peak, I think, of the 2010s and 2020s. Not a strong position, but hey, shout out Chris Bosh. This is Bam. Bam Adebayo. We'll just kind of climb here. Let's have a talk between these Heat bigs really quickly. I think Bam is better. Chris Bosh calling card is defense, and Bam's a better defender. Bam or Paul Pierce. 2010's Paul Pierce, Bam Adebayo. 2010's Paul Pierce, Bam Adebayo. I think I'm putting Bam over all of these guys. And I think that's as high as he climbs this ladder. I think that's as high as he goes. This is Dwight Howard. On the Magic, of course. I think in, was it 09, they lose in the finals. And I think 2010 and 2011 are his Defensive Player of the Year seasons. Obviously, very good rebounder, good in the post, got some game down there. One of the greatest defenders, not only of his generation, but clearly of all time. Definitely of his generation. Let's have this talk. This is about where I want to have the talk. Let's have this talk. I think Dwight's a better rebounder. I think Bam is a more versatile defender, but I'm not sure if, because Bam isn't like some rim protector, and this right here is an all-time great rim protector and shot blocker. So I think even though he doesn't have Bam's versatility, that level of rim protection may or may not be of more value, especially in a certain scheme. Because this is like a guy who's going to give you similar to like Rudy Gobert rim protection while still being able to move his feet a little bit better. Obviously, I think Bam has a better jumper than Dwight, but he doesn't have like the post game and the bully. Yeah, we're gonna put Dwight higher, and let's see. Do I think he was better than Melo in the 2010s, like at their peaks? Does Melo do enough? Like, we know he's a better scorer. Does he do enough though for me to? I'm putting Dwight higher. I don't think that will offend anyone, right? I don't think that will offend anyone. Maybe this will offend people that I don't have him above Blake. But I think just offensively, this guy has a different like level and skill set, and he wasn't a bad defender. Obviously, like you can't compare it, but he wasn't a bad defender. I don't know if Dwight's defense is enough to make up for what Blake Griffin can do offensively while still not being a negative defender. Like as a number one offensive option, I think you can do more with Blake than you can Dwight. Do I truly believe this though? Do I truly believe Blake's better? Not with 100% confidence, I don't. But I think Pistons Blake was just pretty good. Let's take a look at Dirk. Okay, so this is probably going to be 2011 Dirk that we're using. Still in a very good stage of his career. Obviously, for sure, a top 10 power forward peak of this last 15 years. Very good shooter. Okay, rebounder. Obviously, in the post and just around the rim. Good touch. Good footwork. Do I think that he is better than these people? Of course. Yeah. Where do I want to put this guy? I know he's not going ahead of Donovan Mitchell and Devin Booker for me. Not this version of Dirk. I know that. Shit. Like it just sounds crazy to have like a rookie ahead of, especially like the stigma around this 2011 championship and how like bolsters people's opinions about Dirk. I think Wemby's better. I think Wemby's better than this version of Dirk, in my opinion. Just because defensively, not much to write home with or write home about with Dirk. And his offensive output was good, but it wasn't, 28, 30 a game. Like, you know what I mean? Wemby's a better passer. Dirk versus Blake and Dwight, like in Melo, like this realm of player. Oh my god. I'm gonna leave him ahead of Dwight. Maybe. Like that's no I'm not. Oh yes I am. Let's leave him. I don't want to think about it. Rudy Gobert. Everyone's pretty unanimously low on this guy. Definitely top 10 center peak, I think, of the last X amount of years. He's better than Zach LaVine. And I'm going to leave it there. He's better than Zach LaVine, and I think that's as high as I'm willing to go, as far as I'm willing to go. This is Kristaps Porzingis. Porzingis. Yeah, he's gonna go beneath Kyle Lowry, probably. And I'll leave that there. LaMarcus Aldridge. Let's see what I want to do with this guy. He's not going ahead of Rudy Gobert, and that I don't know if this is like a hot take, but like I'm probably gonna leave Rudy higher. I don't think LaMarcus Aldridge. He's not moving me too much. Obviously, we know he clears Rudy offensively. We're not really having that discussion, but just in terms of overall value, I think Rudy's a better defensive player. Obviously, better rebounder. I think he can floor raise much better than LaMarcus Aldridge, right? Like if you have Rudy on your team, no matter what, you're gonna be a top defense, top 1, top 5, top whatever. Like you're gonna have an elite defense regardless of the pieces around him. We saw that with the 21 Jazz, who had basically nothing to guard the perimeter. With Aldridge, there's no guarantee you're gonna have some, top end offense or just like, I don't know. I don't think he's better than Rudy. Do I think he's better than Zach LaVine? Maybe, maybe not. I'm leaving Aldridge higher. Sorry, Zach. Let's go with Anthony Davis. Okay. AD. What do you think his peak is? 2020 with LeBron James and like that season? Do you think it's like a 2018 Pelicans AD? We can just kind of climb the ladder here. I'll stop when I think it's worth a conversation. He's better than Jimmy Butler. Let's see. Let's have this talk. Let's do this duel. Peak Harden versus peak Anthony Davis. My lord. Obviously, AD, one of the great defenders of his generation, regardless of if he's won the DPOY or not, which is stupid that he hasn't, by the way. In 2020, as a scorer, just looked at, what was he, like 26 a game, I want to say. Obviously, a very good rebounder as well. Passing or anything, not really, his strength. But this guy, 2020 AD, man, I don't know. That was different. Obviously, we know that offensively Harden is just clear. It's a matter of, do I think Harden's defense is enough for me to... Because this is, again, one of the best defenders of his generation and all time, to be honest. I'm going to leave him beneath... I'm going to leave him... I'm putting him... Fuck me. Who do you guys think? Peak AD or peak Harden? That's tough. Who should I move down? Whatever. Whatever. Do I believe this with, like, certainty? I do not. I don't even know if I believe, like, this. I don't know. Give me Luka, I think. But we'll leave it like this. Pau Gasol. Where's he at? Here we go. Pau. He's going to go above Aldridge. He's going to go above Rudy Gobert. He's going to go above Kristaps Porzingis. He's going to... Yeah. We're going to... Chris Bosh versus Pau Gasol. Give me Pau in the 2010s. Give me Pau. Not comfortably, but I mean, I don't have to really think too much about that one. I don't know where I want to, like, obviously, let's see. The cutoff for sure is Bam. He's not going above Bam. Let's put Pau right here. Am I wild for having Middleton ahead of him? I don't think so. I think Middleton's a better scorer. Obviously, playmaker and passer. Pau's a better defender, hitting the glass. But I think I saw Chris Middleton carry his team in stretches without his best player. That I'm not sure if Pau can, like, reach those highs. Well, I know he can't, like, offensively reach those highs. Middleton's still a plus defender at that time. We'll go with Chris. Back to back. Now we got Marc Gasol. One of the best defenders in the league. Very good passing big man. He's just like better than Aldridge. He's better than Rudy Gobert. And then to be honest with you, this may or may not be where the love stops. I think we all agree Porzingis is a better offensive player. Marc's a better rebounder, better defender. Yeah, I'll do that. Do I think Marcus on the 2010s peaked higher than Kyle Lowry? I'm gonna leave Kyle ahead of Mark, I think. And I think Mark can go here. I think he can go here. And we'll just grab our next name. We're on down here. 16 more names left. 16 more players. This is Draymond. Obviously, it's going to be 2016 Draymond that we're using. Just a very, very good player. One of the best defenders in the league. I would argue the best defender in the league at that time. No lower than like 2. No lower than 3 for sure. One of the best playmaking forwards, not just of his era, but maybe of all time, just at that forward position in terms of being able to push the break, get out in transition, find, obviously the greatest shooters of all time, or keep and just go all the way, coast to coast. Remember, like he was a good finisher, hitting this three at 37, 38% on okay volume. Good rebounder. He's better than Cat. Where's Bam? Where did I put Bam? Where did I put Bam? Oh, right here. He's better than Bam. Draymond Green versus 2010's Melo. He does everything better than him except score. But Melo scores at such an elite level, especially, obviously just being like a number one offensive option, being the best player on a team. It's just different roles. And so for that, I may leave. But see, like, I don't care. I don't want to break my brain too much thinking about this. Let's just put it like this. If I wanted to, if I cared enough, I could make a case for peak Draymond over any form of 2010's Melo. And if you disagree, maybe you're just low on Draymond or high on Melo. I don't know. This is going to be DeMarcus Cousins. Very underrated big, very forgotten about big. And I ended up using Pelicans, DeMarcus Cousins. Crazy, right? When he was next to AD, what was that, 2018, I want to say? Off the top of my head, maybe like 26 points, 11 rebounds, 5, something crazy like that, I think. Just a very good offensive center, just offensive player in general. He's hitting his threes at what I want to say 40% on pretty high volume. Obviously, he's a bully, getting to free throw line, attacking in the paint. Good passer. Like, this is like a nerfed Nikola Jokic. He's going to climb a very decent bit here. Like, DeMarcus Cousins at his best. He's better than Bam. He's better than Draymond. He's better than Carmelo Anthony. He's better than Dwight Howard for me. He's better than this version of Dirk to me. He's better than Blake Griffin. He's better than Wemby. What do I want to do here? What do I want to do here? I think he's better than Derrick Rose. I think he is a better scorer than Derrick Rose. Derrick really just has like playmaking and passing over him, finishing maybe. He's a better shooter than D Rose, I think he's just a bigger matchup problem, and I wish we could have seen him in the playoffs because he didn't get injured in the playoffs. I'm pretty sure he got injured before the playoffs with that Pelicans team. They had Drew Holiday, Rondo, AD, him. That's a crazy team looking back. I wish we could have seen them play. I think Wade is where the cutoff is just because it's high enough offensive output. Not like DeMarcus Cousins' offensive output, but high enough while also just clearing as a defender to where, like, I don't think he breaks this threshold. I don't think. And so then it's just a matter of, because, like, again, him, Donovan Mitchell, Devin Booker, these are far from defensive stoppers. It's really just, do I think he's a better offensive player than these guys? I'm going to say that he is not. Maybe. I don't know. I don't know. These are better shooters than him. He's a better finisher, better at getting to the free throw line, obviously better rebounder. These are better playmakers and passers, even though Boogie does that good at his position in terms of like an actual offensive initiator, which he still did. I don't think he could reach these highs, obviously, just naturally as guards. I think these guys get the edge. This is annoying because it's like when you're comparing just such drastically different players, like it's very hard to just try and. But I don't know if I really believe this. That's the thing. I also think had he played like deeper into this era that like Devin Booker and Don Mitchell were playing in, as we got more skilled fours and like skill fives, I think his defense would have been like exploited even more than it already was at his time. Like I think defensively in a scheme, these two can survive better than like DeMarcus Cousins because he's gonna have to like guard uh on the perimeter and pick and rolls either switch out, which I wouldn't do. Probably play like drop and then not be able to recover and get a hand up on the shooter. Like I think his defensive deficiencies would have been taken advantage of more had he played a little bit deeper into like this era of just high pick and roll spam, 3-point chucking. Like Bradley Beal, he's better than Zach LaVine for starters. He's better than LaMarcus Aldridge. He's better than Rudy. He's better than Porzingis. He damn near led the league in scoring that year. He's going just toe to toe with Steph. Uh, okay passer and playmaker, like okay at that stuff. Obviously, no defender. I think he peaked higher than Kyle Lowry. Maybe. I think he's higher. I think he's higher than this version of Paul Pierce. Just those back-to-back seasons of averaging 30, I think he peaked higher than DeRozan as a scorer, right? Which is DeRozan's just strongest attribute. I think he's a better passer than DeRozan. I'm not gonna put him higher than Bam. I'll put him over Middleton. 13 more players to go. This is Kyrie Irving. And I ended up using, I'm pretty sure, where's he at? I used Brooklyn Kyrie. I think this is the best version of Kyrie that we saw. Obviously, he's most known for his 2016 championship, but if you look at that season, even that playoff run, like he wasn't crazy. He wasn't crazy. He was good, and then obviously in the finals, last 3 games specifically, just iconic. I think he played his best basketball in Brooklyn. He averaged 27 points on 50, 40, 90, just hyper efficient, high output. Um, Later in his career, so he's probably got a little bit more in between, the years as well. We're gonna like climb here for a minute. I know he's not going over Wemby. I'm gonna put him over Blake. And just leave that there and not think about it too much. Let's go with Giannis now. Expect him to climb a bit. This is Giannis. We'll just kind of throw him up here. He peaked higher than AD. He's peaked higher than Luka. Whoo! All right, let's have this talk. So, Embiid, better defender and better offensive player. There's your talk. If you want to have the playoff translation talks with these two, right? Like this guy led a team to a championship. This guy hasn't been out of the second round. I get it. I get it. I really do. But, I mean, I'm not holding injuries against people. I'm sorry. So, yeah, just peak for peak ability. Give me Embiid over Giannis. And I don't think that's crazy. I think everyone's okay with that. Well, not everyone, but I'm okay with it. And I made the list, so there we go. Now we got Kawhi. I think I used 2019 Kawhi. Crazy, crazy run. Very good season. We all know. But is he better than Blake Griffin, though? Let's have. He's better than Russ. Let's have the. He's not going over Giannis. He isn't. Let's have this talk, maybe. Did he peak higher than James Harden? Oh fuck. Okay. All right. Let's throw aside our winning biases. Right. Did Kawhi consistently just peak higher than the best of James Harden? Do I think? Oh shit! I put AD above Harden, didn't I? Do I? Do I believe it? See, the difference. I think the difference between all three of these players, right? AD and Harden, and just more specifically Harden, in terms of like the offensive load he had to carry for an entire season and going into the postseason, versus AD. This version of AD I picked is 2020. If you think that's his peak, if you think 2018 is his peak or whatever, but 2020 specifically, he had LeBron James shouldering that load with him, and obviously he ended up leading the team in scoring. I think having an elite level playmaker next to you kind of makes that a little bit easier, and that's nothing taken away from AD, right? But this guy's self-creating. He's creating for others. He's just not comparable to these guys defensively. And then we know like the playoff stigma around him. But Kawhi, even in comparison like AD, I don't know if consistently through a entire regular season and postseason, he had this load of being arguably the best defender in the world at the time. Probably was. And just being, and obviously he was the number one option on the Raptors. But I'm just saying, like, in the playoffs, iconic, historic run. In the regular season, just solid all NBA season. You know what I mean? Like, he wasn't having to do as much as these guys consistently for a whole season. He was resting, sitting games. Raptors were still winning without him. Not that they were going to do anything without him, in actuality. But, like, he just didn't have to carry as much. And so maybe, come playoffs, that's why it didn't end up flaming out, or just he was just capable of putting on that historic run. But in terms of like, he's better than Russ, I think. And with Russ, that same thing can imply in terms of like carrying a load throughout the regular season and translating to the postseason. But this right here is one of the greatest postseason performers of all time in comparison to like a Russ, where it's like, nah. So try not to be inconsistent here. I really am. One of the greatest postseason performers of all time, who's not a negative on either end, versus a guy who can have his playoff woes and at best breaks even at one end. That's tough. Let me know what you guys think about that one. That's hard. Ranking people is hard. This is John Wall, one of the underrated point guards of his generation. Amazing passer, good scorer. His 3-point shot was, man, his jumper in general kind of streaky. One of the greatest guards in transition. Solid rebounder, I guess, whatever. Pretty good defender. He's going to climb here for a bit. Can't I have, like, this talk, though? Like, the more I just look at this, though, like, can't I have a Derrick Rose versus Kyrie Irving conversation? Kyrie Irving didn't have to be a one in Brooklyn when he had that crazy season. He had, Kevin Durant. He had an elite playmaker in James Harden. But that alone, though, just the talent they had, the fact that they were a big three, and he still was averaging 27, that's just crazy. But at the end of the day, I guess he was the third best player on that team versus a guy who actually had to lead his team, face number one coverages. And obviously, we just look at the bare numbers. They're going to favor Kyrie, but it's kind of like different paces and slightly different eras, right? Like this 2011 Rose versus like 2021 Kyrie. Like that's just kind of different to just go and look at bare numbers. We'll leave Rose higher. And then I'm going to put John Wall ahead of Derrick Rose. All right. Up next, we have Klay Thompson. One of the greatest shooters ever, obviously. Elite perimeter defender. Very efficient. Where am I going to put this guy? It's better than DeRozan. Yeah. Let's have a. He's not going to go above Bam or like Draymond or whatever. I know a lot of people think Klay was like the second best player in the Warriors pre KD and like post KD. Draymond's better. He does more. He's a better player. He's not going above Bam. He's not going above Bill. I don't think. This is the talk I want to have. I think in terms of creating their own shot and as playmakers and passers, operating out of the pick and roll as the ball handler, just all that stuff offensively that isn't like shooting or cutting. It just favors Chris Middleton. And yes, Klay's a better defender, but self-creation is probably gonna into his run about right here in this ladder. This is Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, for sure a top point guard peak of the last 15 seasons. Just amazing last 2 seasons from him, but specifically this year, found himself in the MVP talks, led a team to the #1 seed. Just amazing stuff for Shai. He's better than Jason Tatum. Where do I want to have the conversation? Let's have this conversation. Let's do that. Paul George is better defensively. Paul George is a better 3-point shooter. Shai clears in the mid-range. Shai's a better finisher. Attacking the basket, getting to the rim, drawing fouls. He's a better playmaker and passer while still being a plus defender. Overall, the offensive load he had to carry versus, again, 2019 PG kind of had Russ doing a lot of the playmaking for the he didn't have to worry about that, which is why I think it's different. Now, Shai as a playmaker and passer, sometimes I'm not too like high on that. He's out there chucking for sure. Like he's not looking to pass, but he's a capable one and much more capable than Paul George, of course. I think he's peaked higher than Jimmy. And then we get to this conversation, and I'm gonna give it to Russ. Here's Kevin Love. He would have benefited from being chosen earlier on in this video because he won't climb much here. This is Wolves K Love, of course. He's going above Rudy Gobert. I guess just because, like, whatever, man. I'm not going to see. I hate just ranking random. Let's compare him to another Wolves big man. Cat's better, I think. I don't want to put him ahead of Marc Gasol. Maybe I'm being low on Kevin Love right now. He's a negative defender, and these guys are all pluses, and then Cat is just a better defender than him and a better offensive player than him too, to be honest. Whatever. I'm going to put him ahead of Rudy Gobert, which is generous, to be honest, and I'm going to just leave it there. This is Damian Lillard. Probably peaked in, 2023 or the bubble season or something. We'll just climb with him here. He peaked higher than these shooting guards here. He peaked higher than 2010's D-Wade anyways, I think. I could have this talk if I really, really wanted to. Dame's a better offensive player and then just gets cleared defensively by all of these guys. Like even Russ, the worst defender in this like stretch of players here, just oh man. I'm sorry, buddy. You're probably like I don't know if Wade had because again Wade clears him defensively, but just as an offensive power at this point in time in his career versus like Dame at his I don't know if his defense specifically is enough to make up for that gap, but these guys are very good, great offensive players and clear defensively. Let's grab Jokic, and instantly, like, there's only one talk I want to have. LeBron James talks. Okay, I think these are the two best players of the last 15 years. That were two best peaks, two highest peaks. Let's just break this down. As a shooter, give me Jokic. Give me Jokic as a shooter in terms of finishing in at the paint or at the rim or in the paint. Jokic does that very well, but we're gonna lean LeBron there for sure. As a playmaker and passer, I do think Jokic might be better. They're close. The difference here for me kind of becomes defense, because these are the two maybe best offensive players of this time frame. Maybe you can make a case for Steph over like LeBron, maybe, but LeBron just clears them defensively, and I think that's where, even in 2018, right? Like, I think that's where the separator is. Because I can make the case of Jokic being the best offensive player on this entire tier list, but 2018 LeBron, crazy all-time offense as well, if not still just being a better offensive player, maybe. And then defensively, he doesn't have the lows of a Jokic. And I still don't think Jokic is like a defensive liability, but we saw in the playoffs this year and just at times, you know what I mean? Like, you know how it gets. So we got 4 more names. This is going to be Tim Duncan. And with Tim, I still think he had a top 10 power forward peak of the 2010s and 2020s. Even going into like 2010, 2011, I think this is a 19.10 rebound guy. Obviously, elite defense, and translated over to the postseason. He's better than Porzingis. He's better than Chris Middleton. I don't think he's like better than Bam or Draymond at this stage of his career. And if I really want to just look at bare numbers, I could put Bill ahead of this Tim Duncan. But I'm not going to. I don't think I'm going to. That looks good. This is an extremely difficult tier list, man. This one's hard. When you actually have to think about it and, actually like compare the players head to head. This is Jaylen Brown. I think he's better than Zach LaVine. I think he's better than LaMarcus Aldridge. I think he's better than Rudy Gobert, Kevin Love. And I think he's worse than Porzingis, as you guys know. Oh, shit. In my list of current players, I have Porzingis as the second best player on the Celtics. I do think he's a better shooter than Jaylen Brown. I think he's better on the defensive end. I think he is creating more mismatches for your defense. He's just a matchup problem. And it's close because of Jaylen Brown's just output. And then I'm not moved by him as a playmaker and passer, but he does that obviously better than like a Porzingis. It's close between these two, but give me Kristaps. Yeah, that looks good. And then we got Ant and Kobe. I guess we'll just do Ant and then do Kobe. So Anthony Edwards, he's better than Zach LaVine. He's better than, blah blah blah. Wherever Cat is, he's better than his teammate. He's better than this version of Chris Bosh. He's better than this version of Paul Pierce. He's better than DeMar DeRozan. Clay, Beal probably, maybe better than this version of Duncan. Better than Draymond. Better than Blake Griffin. Better than Kyrie Irving. He's not better than Wemby. He's not better than Wemby. And I'll just kind of leave that there. And then Kobe's our last one we're going to be ranking. Obviously, in the early 2010s, Kobe was still one of the best players in the world. Won the title in 2010, obviously. Finals MVP and whatnot. What was it, 13 or 12 he got injured? I think it was like 13 maybe, that game against the Warriors. But Kobe's going to climb here even in this form. And I say that like he wasn't still one of the best players in the world. But is he better than Blake Griffin? Let's have this talk. I don't want to have this talk. Do I? Do I? Do I want to have this talk? I think that version AD is better than any version of 2010's Kobe. Maybe. Maybe. Give me Kobe. Give me Kobe. Give me Kobe. All right. And that here is our list. I'm going to go ahead and number them here. All right. So we got them numbered. Starting with the best peak of the 2010s, 2020s era, last 15 years from from now. We have LeBron James at number 1, peaking the highest, followed by Nikola Jokic at 2, Steph Curry at 3, Kevin Durant at 4, Joel Embiid at 5, Giannis Antetokounmpo at 6, Luka at 7, Anthony Davis at 8, Kobe Bryant still a top 10 peak of the 2010s, 2020s, as is Kawhi. Number 11, James Harden. 12 is Russ. 13 is Shea, which sounds like high for some reason, but it isn't. I mean, hey, that man hoops. 14 is Jimmy Butler. 15 is Paul George. 16 is Chris Paul. 17 is JT. 18 we have Dame. 19 we have Dwayne Wade. Still a top 20 peak of the 2010s and 2020s. Good for him. 20 is Devin Booker. Just outside the top 20s, Donovan Mitchell. John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, D Rose. Wemby at 25. As a rookie, I believe he has a top 25 peak of the last 15 years. Good for him. Anthony Edwards, Kyrie Irving, Blake Griffin, Dirk Nowitzki, Dwight Howard, 31's Carmelo Anthony, 32's Draymond, 33's Bam. We have Tim Duncan, Bradley Beal, Chris Middleton, Klay Thompson at 37, Pau Gasol 38, DeMar 39, Pierce at 40, 41's Chris Bosh, 42's Cat, 43's Kyle Lowry, 44 is Marc Gasol, Porzingis is 45th, 46 is Jaylen Brown, 47 is Kevin Love, Rudy Gobert, LaMarcus Aldridge, and rounding out the top 50 peaks of this era is Zach LaVine. Now, remember, only 10 players were selected from each of the 5 positions to make these top 50 peaks. So let me know if there was any player you think I missed that was maybe not top 10 at their position, but better than like someone at the back end of one of the other positions that maybe should have made this tier list. What would you change about my ranking here? If you want to do this tier list yourself, the link will be in the description. Remember, these aren't the original like default tiers. I just put top 10, top 20, top 30, top 40, top 50. You don't have to go on as in-depth as I did when doing your ranking. Make sure to like the video, leave a comment, let me know what you thought. Share, please. Subscribe. Do all that stuff. And I will see you on the next tier list.